the hallmarks of a TBJ summer, aside from getting to sit in this beautiful chapel, is that the clergy gives all of you a little break from us, and we actually have a little bit of time to think as we prepare for the days of awe to come, and we invite members of our community to share their own words of Torah. This past April, I had the privilege of leading a trip of 34 TBJ members to Poland on the March of the Living, and it was, as you've heard and you will hear, an incredibly powerful and important experience for me. And one of the best parts of it was getting to reconnect with people that I had known and people I got to re-meet as adults. And one of those people is our speaker tonight, Rebecca Mandelbaum, who, of course, I knew as a young person in our congregation and who grew up here and bat mitzvah and all of the simchas. But it was really wonderful to get to sit next to her on the bus and at dinners and walk with her in some of the darkest places in our people's history, but getting to meet her as an adult, which she truly is. So Rebecca's going to tell you much more about herself and her own journey, but we're really privileged to welcome Rebecca Mandelbaum as our Shabbat evening speaker tonight. It's a supportive brother.
I think your brother can clap.
Hi. Hi everyone, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
This past spring, I stood at the gates of Auschwitz for the first time. I was there as part of TPJ's first delegation to March of the Living, a journey that brings thousands from around the world to Poland to walk the path from Auschwitz to Birkenau in memory of the 6 million Jews who were murdered. Standing outside the gates for the first time, I felt something shift in me. My stomach clenched. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I felt sick, unsteady. For the first time, I came face to face with the enormity of what I've only studied from a distance. I had immersed myself in Holocaust studies, at one point even considering majoring in genocide studies, but no textbook, no documentary, no classroom could have prepared me for that moment. The scale, the silence, the chilling precision of a place engineered to erase us. And yet, with the strength of our TBJ group, the steady presence of our tour guide Gita, the leadership of Rabbi Karen, and the solidarity of thousands from across different generations, faiths, and political perspectives, we walked through the gates together. We stood in the very places where families, some connected to people in our own group, had been torn apart. When the grief felt too heavy, we leaned on one another, sometimes through conversation, sometimes simply by standing side by side in silence. There were moments when it felt like too much to hold alone, but through the tears, through the silence, and through the sorrow, we kept walking, together. The walk gave me clarity I hadn't expected. Auschwitz, Majdanek, and the other sites we visited are mirrors. They reflect what happens when hatred goes unchecked, when power is abused, when the world is silent. Most painfully, they show what happens when Jews are left without protection, without a place to turn. It reminded me, in the deepest way, why we need a state of Israel, a state that challenges us to build something that reflects our deepest values: justice, dignity, compassion, and responsibility. A state that, like our people, embraces both the will to protect and humility to evolve. But I haven't always felt this certain about my beliefs. When I arrived at college, I was unprepared for the wave of anti-Zionist narratives I encountered. I heard that Zionism was oppressive, that being a Jew who supported a Jewish state made me complicit in injustice. I was even told to take my Jewish star off during class, that I should be ashamed to wear it. I was shocked, shaken. I had questions I wasn't sure how to ask, and very few people who were willing to help me ask them. So I did the only thing I knew how to do. I dove in head first. I needed to understand, not just what I believed, but why. I studied Middle East history, politics, and conflict resolution. I listened to voices across the spectrum, Israeli and Palestinian, Jewish and Arab, critical and committed. I lived in Israel, and I participated in a program alongside Israelis and Palestinians my age, learning directly from their stories. I set out looking for answers, but I found something even more valuable: questions. Being able to say I don't know the answer and sit with that uncertainty led me to where I am today. What does it really mean to sit with the unknown? For someone like me, a perfectionist, It can be agonizing to leave any stone unturned, to live with the ache of unanswered questions. I'm wired, like so many of us, to crave certainty, to want the world to fit into a story I can understand. But what I've come to learn, often through struggle, is that true integrity asks for something much harder, the courage to stay curious. It means asking questions that don't come with easy answers. It means resisting the urge to tie everything up in a neat bow. It means staying present even when it's messy, even when your heart aches and your head spins. It means holding space for the painful truth that history is tangled and complicated, that people can be both harmed and caused harm, and that justice demands hard, imperfect compromises we're never fully ready for. I embrace Zionism not by turning away from the criticism, but by grappling with it. For me, Zionism is a commitment to building and defending a secure Jewish and democratic Israel, one that reflects justice and a deep connection to Jewish peoplehood. I believe in supporting Israel and advocating for Palestinian autonomy aren't opposing paths, but deeply connected responsibilities. I hold hope in honest, nuanced conversations that seek real progress, where security and justice go hand in hand. Today, I work as a community organizer for Israel Policy Forum, a Jewish communal organization and think tank dedicated to advancing a secure Jewish and democratic Israel. I'm also a facilitator within Israel Policy Forum and beyond, who hosts and trains people on how to navigate difficult conversations. In 2024 alone, I worked with over 3,500 young professionals. And here's what I've learned from my own conversations and my own struggles. My generation isn't disengaging because they don't care. They're disengaging because they're exhausted. They're overwhelmed. We live in a world that rewards quick takes and punishes hesitation, when uncertainty feels like danger and silence due to cancel culture feels like safety. They've been told that if they don't have all the answers, they shouldn't speak, that showing doubt means they will be judged, and that loving Israel while mourning Palestinian loss makes them feel like they're betraying someone or something they love. Because it's hard to stay in the messiness. It's hard to sit with the discomfort that when everyone in the world is telling you to pick a side, to post something polished, and to have the perfect answer. But this conflict, this moment, weighs too much to be tied up that neatly. And for many, that tension is unbearable. So they disengage, they pull away, they stay silent, not because they don't care, but because the weight is too much to carry alone. And often they don't know who will help carry it with them. But here's the truth. Discomfort is not actually a bad thing. Discomfort means we're stretching, wrestling, caring. And if we can stay in that discomfort, if we can resist the urge to walk away, that's where growth begins. That's where healing begins, and that's where connections become possible again. What keeps people engaged and brings them back into the fold is the chance to step into honest, difficult conversations led by trusted voices who value truth over spin and depth over sound bites. The most powerful conversations are the ones that don't tell you what to think. They're the ones that give you permission to ask every question, especially the hard, messy ones. They give people the tools and courage to wrestle with complexity on their own terms. To engage honestly, we must meet people where they're at in all their complexity. That means listening deeply, visiting the places that shape their lives, and recognizing that no single story holds the whole truth. What I do is create space to pause, reflect, and learn. Even with all I've learned, I don't walk into the space as someone with all the answers. That's not the point. I'm here to help people become more informed, not in the sense of having every fact or winning an argument, but in the sense of seeing a situation more clearly, asking questions, and understanding where others are coming from. Being informed is about curiosity, humility, and grounding ourselves in values. And when we lead with values, not just conclusions, the conversation opens, not because everyone thinks the same way, but because we recognize that people may share the same values and hopes, even if they believe in different ways to get there. That's where deep understanding emerges, where people find clarity and the courage to keep showing up. That's why, for me, facilitation is such a deeply Jewish act. Our tradition is built on argument, on dialogue, on tension that doesn't break us but binds us. Think of Hillel and Shammai, of Moses and the Israelites, of every page of the Talmud that holds contradictions side by side. And I have to say a quick note to my family in the audience. You didn't think I'd be referencing the Torah tonight, would you? I see my work as part of that legacy, helping people navigate grief, anger, difference, and indifference, and still stay in the room. That's what gives me hope, because silence won't heal us, and simplicity, no matter how comforting, won't make us whole. Because moral clarity comes from wrestling and pushing yourself to keep engaging, even when it's hard. One of my most meaningful moments in my work came a few days after October 7th. I was asked on 48 hours' notice to facilitate a 3-hour dialogue with 40 clergy members, rabbis, priests, and imams on the wars in Gaza and Ukraine and how their communities were processing it. I was the youngest in the room by at least 20 years, and I was nervous. People came in carrying real pain in their hearts, real disagreement in their minds, real fear in their souls, including my own. Some weren't sure it was even possible to have the conversation, and yet no one left. Voices were raised. We had to reset the space more than once, but they stayed. They stayed because they believed their communities needed it, because they believed helping each other mattered, because they knew that even in the messiness, showing up still matters. That, to me, is the lesson. My goal isn't to make everyone agree with me and my beliefs. It's to help my generation find the strength to keep learning, to keep asking the hard questions, and to keep showing up even when it's uncomfortable. Because moral clarity doesn't come from easy answers. It comes from the courage to wrestle with complexity, to hold space for the grief of both Israelis and Palestinians, and still believe in the possibility of something better. Ultimately, a country is not solely defined by its leaders. It's defined by the values its peoples are willing to fight for. We can love Israel and still demand more from it. We can grieve deeply and still reach for hope. That's the same strength I felt walking through Auschwitz, through the silence, the shoes, the ashes, the unbearable weight of loss. I don't believe our obligation is only to bear witness. I believe it is to act. Zionism, to me, is not just about defending Israel's existence. It's about fighting for the kind of Israel we want to exist, a state that reflects who we are, what we value, a people unafraid to wrestle, to stretch, to evolve, and to repair. Memory demands responsibility. Responsibility demands action, and action begins with choosing not to walk away. So as we leave here tonight, I'll end with this. In a world that tells us to take sides, cancel, and walk away, may we have the courage to stay and fight, because the future of our people, of Israel, doesn't depend on perfect answers. It depends on our willingness to show up, to ask, to wrestle, and to keep walking together. Thank you for listening. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much.
And Rebecca, if your generation has even 1/10 of the spirit and the presence that you brought tonight, I think we all can walk out of here with a little bit more hope. And I know that Rebecca has very proud parents, aunts and uncles, grandparents. There are a lot of fans, and I know that you've made a lot more tonight. So you can be sure to greet Rebecca at Oneg immediately following services. Taking some of what